Today, we're speaking about the future of AgTech. Just before we begin, I want to take a little bit of time to thank Alberta Innovates, who's the sponsor for this webinar on the future of AgTech. So this year, Alberta Innovates has been celebrating 100 years of transformation and innovation in the province. And they've sponsored the Alberta Beyond series that has been produced by TheFutureEconomy.ca. And that series explores the many sectors, organizations, and individuals as well that are shaping Alberta's future economy. So do check out the Alberta Beyond series on TheFutureEconomy.ca. And I just want to say Alberta Innovates has been a great partner to work with, a true pleasure. So a big thank you to them. So today we're speaking about the future of AgTech. As Canadians, agriculture is central to our national identity. And I'm sure that wherever we're from, I think we can all easily picture and identify with the prairie's huge golden grain fields, or Ontario and Quebec's endless corn rows lining our country roads, and apple picking season in the east and in BC that just came to an end recently. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that agriculture is ingrained in our Canadian identity. And it's central to our current and future economies. But I do think that the images and visions we hold of agriculture are probably not entirely in line with the industry's current reality. There are forces and trends that are shaping agriculture's future. First factor, I think, is the environmental impact and sustainability that food and agriculture production have. So food and ag production accounts for between 21 to 37% of our global GHG emissions. So obviously estimates vary on that one, but it's quite a big number. It also accounts for 70% of freshwater use and covers over 50% of the planet's habitable land. Then we have climate change. So agriculture has an impact on our environment, but is also severely impacted by environmental changes itself. We can think of changing weather, heat waves, drought, floods. Then another big factor is global population growth. It's projected that there will be over 9.7 billion people on the planet by 2050, which is lots of mouths to feed. And then we also have changing consumption patterns, both in Canada and in international markets. And these include changing diets. You can think of the growth of alternative proteins, veganism, and the like, demand for higher quality foods, requirements for how our food is produced in terms of its sustainability, so how much CO2 has been emitted, or water used, or energy consumed to produce it, and requirements in terms of traceability, certification, and identification. And of course, all this impacts the costs for producers, as well as the costs of the foods we buy and eat, or those we choose not to. So where does AgTech fit into all this? As in many other sectors, technology offers solutions. Technologies are being developed and deployed across the entire agri-food value chain, from primary production to food processing to distribution. And AgTech solutions exist in areas such as precision farming, livestock management, high-tech farming equipment, controlled environment agriculture, biotech, and more. So today's conversation is going to explore all these forces and trends that make AgTech so crucial to our agriculture industry and its future, as well as the potential the industry itself holds for our future economy. We'll be looking at where Canada is now in AgTech development and implementation, what challenges and opportunities exist in the space, and who has to do what now for Canada to lead and win in the future of AgTech. So we have three excellent panelists to explore this crucial topic today. First, we have Stanford Blade. Stan is the Dean of the Faculty of Agricultural Life and Environmental Sciences at the University of Alberta. He's also the former Executive Director of the Alberta Agricultural Research Institute. We're also joined by Karen Schuett, who's the co-founder and CEO of Livestock Water Recycling based in Calgary. So her company is a global manufacturer of manure treatment systems that recycle clean water and nutrients from livestock manure for reuse. And also, Karen was recognized this year as one of Canada's leaders in sustainability for her contribution to clean tech. So congratulations, Karen. And last but definitely not least, we have Remy Schmaltz, who's the Director of North American Agribusiness Development at Telus Agriculture. Telus Ag acquired Decisive Farming, the company Remy co-founded, and of which he's still the CEO. Decisive Farming provides integrated farm management tools that employ precision agriculture and data analysis. And Remy is also an associate of the agri-food stream at the Creative Destruction Lab in the Rockies. So Stan, Karen, and Remy, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and calls to action with us today. And let's get into it. What do you think?
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, Stan, I'm going to call on you first so that you can give us a common base or a foundation for this discussion. I'd like to ask you to just briefly define AgTech. What is it?
Well, thanks very much, Tim. And of course, thank you to the Future Economy and to Alberta Innovates for the invitation to participate in this important panel. I'm looking to learning a lot from Remy and Karen as well. AgTech, I think I'm going to take a slightly different turn. I know that people think a lot about AgTech and associated with hardware solutions, whether it's about robotics or automation, those software pieces, thinking about big data and all of the other types of information that can flow from within the food system. But I guess I want to think more about outcomes. Maybe I'm learning something from the Olympics when they talk about Citius, Altius, Fortius, stronger, faster, higher. I think we should define AgTech as anything that makes more money for producers or people in the food chain, that makes things happen more efficiently, that creates opportunities for us to produce food more sustainably, that we can reduce our carbon, that we can increase the nutritiousness and safety of food. So I guess always thinking about what those outcomes might be. And even though I've talked about those sort of hardware, software solutions, I'm thinking about biological solutions. I just noticed in the Financial Times last week, they were talking about all kinds of bio solutions that Brazil is using in their AgTech startups. And of course, I wouldn't sit in the position that I do as dean of a faculty of 1,800 undergrads, of over 600 graduate students, that part of AgTech are the people and their skills and abilities to actually make AgTech happen. So absolutely all the things that we read about in the business section of papers and all of the documentation in this very exciting time of the growth of the agri-food sector, but also to think about the people that are out there and the skills that we're going to need if Canada is really going to be a great success.
Well, thank you so much, Stan, for setting the stage in terms of what we're discussing here. I want to turn to Remy and Karen to ask them, and we'll start with you, Karen, what you see as the forces and trends, both national and global, that are shaping the future of Canada's agriculture industry. I mentioned a few in my introduction, but I don't know if you agree or have any to add to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Of course, with our background at livestock water recycling, I would like to talk about environmental sustainability. Alberta has so much to offer to the agriculture industry worldwide, and Canada, is leading globally in so many initiatives. And really, when we look at consumer demand for more traceable and sustainable protein, we really have to look at AgTech to improve our processes, to do more with less in a sustainable way. My vision is to say Alberta beef is the most sustainable beef produced on the planet. And, how can we help that? That's what we're really looking at right now.
Remy, do you have anything to add to that? What do you see?
Yeah, for sure. I think that as we see, more urbanization occurring globally, people have become very disconnected with where their food comes from. And there's been a major shift in recent years of people trying to make that reconnection. And so I think that's really what's driving a lot of the consumer demand on this. And I think there's probably more focus around agricultural technology today than we've seen like in the last 100 years. People are wanting to get engaged, reconnected in ag. And because of that, there's a lot of opportunities in it. Of course, these things are also being influenced, as Karen mentioned, by things like climate change. And then, that feeds into the regulatory side where we're seeing like the Canadian government announced reductions of greenhouse gas emissions on things like fertilizer by 30%, and how we can work as an industry to figure out how we achieve these goals and be more efficient. So certainly it's coming at the industry from multiple angles.
Yeah, so we're speaking about environmental factors, factors of traceability, and a few others that you guys have mentioned. I wonder how applying technology to what has long been a very traditional industry can help us resolve those challenges or meet those goals and expectations. Karen, in which areas do you see AgTech having the biggest impact in terms of allowing us to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to say anything about this because farms are actually adopting technology all the time. They are, it's nothing in the dark ages, that's for sure. Our farms are so advanced. But where we're applying technology ourselves is in an old-fashioned practice around manure storage and then spreading. So we're putting a small technology package on farm that just moves that along into a digital environment, taking digital input and data input from that, applying some machine learning algorithms, and really generating the best possible outcome for that waste, and of course, the best possible value. I mean, that's where we see a big impact from our perspective, but of course, there's many other, and I'm sure Remy can speak to this, about automation. With labor shortages, we have a lot of food that ends up going to waste. So automation and digitization is just, obviously the future of everything we do on farm. From our perspective, though, we're looking at a really old-fashioned waste to worth package and it's global. Alberta isn't behind by any means, or Canada isn't behind. Everyone has been doing this, and we're bringing this forward into a new land for waste to worth.
Well, Remy, Karen just called you out on that one. What would you have to add in that respect?
Yeah, I love being called out. It's good. So I think first off, we have to level set of where we are in Canadian agriculture. A lot of the technology that is sustainable and being exported around the world, things like no-till technology, have been used here for decades. And so we are certainly, as an industry, on the forefront. I think we need to get much better at telling our story. We are getting better, but we need to continue to that narrative. But I agree with Karen. It's absolutely about digitizing as the foundation. So things like digital field boundaries, digital crop records, are the foundation that enable for other technologies to be layered in. Things like AI, automation. And by doing that, it's really about connecting that supply chain. So by having a unified supply chain from farm and ranch up into agribusiness, and then moving into food and to eventually to the end consumer, is really what we need to create efficiencies in the system, flow of data that's going to allow us to differentiate ourselves. So I think we have a good start. We've got a long ways to go and lots of good work to be done, though.
Well, Stan, I want to turn to you and continue with this theme of implementation. Remy just mentioned a few enabling technologies that are not necessarily exclusive to AgTech, but support everything that it does. Could you speak a bit more about those and how far along we are in Alberta and in Canada in terms of marrying the two and getting these technologies to work in the forms where they're needed?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I just like to reinforce what Karen and Remy have said about Canadian farmers being innovators right from the very beginning. agriculture in Western Canada was not an easy thing. It was when people started to realize that there were new techniques, new ways of producing food across Western Canada. And it leads all the way up until today. So, when I think about on the production side, Remy has already highlighted a lot of those data tools that now are available where information can be used, whether it's auto steer in vehicle, in tractors and combines and those sorts of things. I mean, all of those things are obvious. Over the decades, producers have been so great at identifying genetic improvements and adopting those genetic improvements in crop cultivars, in animal genetics. And now we're at a stage with genomics and the other omics technologies where we're able to realize extraordinary gains by implementing these techniques. Here at the University of Alberta, we've led the world in elements of livestock genomics. Some of those first conferences and meetings that were held, it was mostly scientists and researchers. Now when people get together, when they can get together, there are a lot of boots and buckles in those rooms as they think about the things that they can do on their farms, on their ranches to use these technologies. So we certainly see that happening. We're very excited. Telus has made a $15 million investment here at the University of Alberta, thinking about 5G, of creating 5G living labs. And we see all kinds of opportunities on not just the current technologies that are out there, but developing the next generation of technologies. Maybe to the last part of your question, I think we still struggle a little bit, and there are lots of groups across Canada that are doing work and thinking about how these new technologies integrate, how they can be handled as simply, as effectively as possible. So all of that comes into play when we start thinking about that next generation of AgTech.
Well, that's really interesting, and I want to dig into that a bit deeper. We have two specialists here in Remy and Karen, Remy on the crop side and Karen on the livestock side. So I'd like to dig deeper, starting with you, Remy, in terms of how precision farming has been helping farmers focused on crops create more efficient operations, increase yields, improve sustainability, and just dig a bit deeper in terms of where you see that going over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, crop farmers have made substantial investments in equipment to reduce labor challenges that they've had, but also to farm more efficiently. And so things like variable rate technology, where you're analyzing the field with satellites and then analyzing the soil to understand precisely where to place crop inputs, and seed within the field, so that you are producing as efficiently as possibly, both from an environmental but also from an economical standpoint. And that goes same with irrigation. Variable rate irrigation is another tool that farmers use. So we've seen pretty good adoption. We still have, in North America in general, it's kind of around 25% adoption of things like soil testing. So we do need to still advance as an industry of further soil analysis. And I mean, I don't think people realize that there's two things that happen in agriculture. One, in a farmer's career, they have 30 chances to get it right, like 30 crops. If they produce one crop a year, that's 30 goes. If you're a manufacturing plant or something, every day or every second, you could test a new technology and see how it works. And they have really, once a year for that to happen. And so there's a lot of risk for them to adopt technology. So I think we got to be much more supportive to help advance these things. But we're doing a pretty good job, but we got to continue to raise the bar and advance ahead.
Well, can I put you on the spot a little bit and ask you what or who has to take action in terms of supporting farmers in that implementation? How can we de-risk that for them? How can we make it easier? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very multifaceted question, right? So, I mean, one of the main challenges when I talk to growers is about having the support, right? So do they trust the people that are helping them implement the technology on the farm? And today, there frankly just aren't enough people that can help the growers out there implement these technologies that at a high enough standard. So, an example of that, recently participated in helping, Olds College and some of the other academic places in Alberta figure out what's the curriculum they need for this next generation of people that are helping and working with growers. And so that's one area that's, I think, really vital and critical to this. We have lots of good technologies on the farm. We need to see that increase of adoption. But I think that we also need to have more technology companies coming out of Alberta in order to see the industry grow and really foster that adoption and support overall. It's too thin. And I think that I'd say we're okay in terms of support, but when I look at companies globally and startups globally in terms of support they get from the government, I'd say at an ag tech level, it's pretty thin in Alberta in comparison. So I think if we're going to get serious about ag tech in Alberta, we really need to step up our game around the support, both from helping investors that maybe are traditionally oil and gas, because a lot of the money in the province is, from that side. They're not domain experts in ag, so they're not that comfortable investing there, but also from a program, government grant support in helping new ag technologies get off the ground and get commercialized in the province.
Well, I'm sensing the seeds of maybe one or two calls to action there, and we're going to get to those later down in the show. We have an expert on Alberta and the livestock sector there. So I want to go back to you, Karen, similar to what we just did with Remy, and ask what you think are the biggest impacts that AgTech is having in terms of the livestock segment of our agriculture industry.
Thank you. Yeah, so much of what Remy said I would echo in what I'm talking about. But I mean, really, we're really looking at automation, data-driven insights to help with decision making or to enhance productivity from our livestock sector, and that includes animal welfare and overall herd management. So there's so much that goes into there. With automation and data technologies. Of course, I'm talking from the manure perspective and talking about precision nutrient application, but also there's a huge energy opportunity that is abundant in Alberta. We've got so much manure we can turn into biomass to energy. And where Remy talks about investors that might have been historically in oil and gas, this is renewable energy. We're energy people in Alberta, and creating renewable natural gas and energy from biomass that we already have existing here is such an excellent opportunity to marry those industries with a little bit of ag tech and increase our value per acre here in Alberta. That's really what we want to do. We have a limited number of acres and a limited number of opportunities as far as just land mass, and we want to improve per acre. And I can see ag tech being applied in the livestock segment, just improving productivity and value per acre.
Excellent. Well, Stan, we have two examples here of very successful entrepreneurs from Alberta in the ag tech space. I'd like to turn to you for maybe a more national perspective. Are there lessons that can be learned from how Alberta developed its ag tech sector, or how it's still developing, that we could apply nationally, that we could spread to other sectors or other segments, throughout the country?
Yeah, thanks. I'll maybe do it in two pieces. If I think about the production side, when I was giving my definition of AgTech, I could easily have also said to reduce our carbon footprint. Both Remy and Karen have made mention of that. We in Alberta have been leaders in thinking about carbon sequestration. Again, the Globe and Mail today has a huge spread talking about carbon sequestration in wild areas of Canada. Alberta has been a leader in thinking about how to actually capture carbon in agricultural soils. A great deal of research has been done. And I think that's one area where ag tech can really play a role. how do we have sensors to actually monitor this? How can we actually monetize carbon sequestration in agricultural lands for producers? Whether it's through remote sensing, satellite imagery, all of these kinds of things to make this something that's fungible, that actually will create revenue for producers. So I think about that, where Alberta has and can continue to play a role on that carbon sequestration piece. And I don't know how far we're moving along the food system, but then I think about value-added food opportunities. And I would identify groups like Protein Industries Canada, where a tremendous amount of companies are working with research groups like ours and others across Canada and around the world to take advantage of this value-added opportunity that comes with plant proteins. So good things happening in Alberta, or we are participating in important Canadian initiatives. So those are good examples, I would say, of how we can further influence some of these opportunities.
And you mentioned Protein Industry Canada, one of the superclusters that was created in 2018. Do you see the need for any other national type organizations like that to push the AgTech file forward?
Well, you're stealing a future question that I have an answer for, but I would just say that at this moment, we need to be more thoughtful and more intentional about an Alberta strategy and then a Canadian strategy that actually talks about our leadership role in this area to ensure that we can produce the kinds of products that the rest of the world is looking for.
Well, let's get to that then. We're all fans of a good old national strategy. We've got a few of them. If I had to turn to you, Remy, and say, well, two questions. Do we need a national strategy for AgTech? And if so, what do you see as the main pillars of it? What would the key elements of that kind of strategy be for you?
Yeah, no, I think we need an AgTech adoption strategy. Obviously, like a unifying vision of what that looks like. We need to figure out, and then ultimately we have to figure out how we overcome any challenges within that with some solutions. And I mean, it's a bit different, when you break it down to a provincial level. Each province has, unique opportunities. When I think of Alberta specifically, we have immense amount of irrigated farmland here. 70% of the irrigated farmland in Canada is found in Alberta. So I think that because of that, we do need to create some framework where we have buy-in from, both from early stage tech companies and how we foster more of those tech companies, how the government can help support that, how we can attract investment. The biggest gaps for me that is really at the pre-seed and seed stage investment in the industry. If we want to foster companies here, when you're a venture stage company, you can find those investors almost anywhere. You don't need a venture capital firm to be in Alberta for them to invest in your company here. Does it help? Sure. But really, it's the seed stage and pre-seed where the gap is. And I think that would have an immense impact on creating more companies in the province that help drive the ecosystem here.
Do you slowly see that changing, though? That recognition that there is a big opportunity here and therefore capital following that opportunity?
It's getting better, even from 2013 to 15, when I would have raised like angel capital in Canada and in Alberta. There weren't really any family offices, in Calgary, as an example. Today, there's quite a few that have come up, and they're interested in agriculture. That's, part of what they want, their investment strategy. The amount of individuals and panels of people who want to learn about ag. Did a presentation with Valhalla Capital as an example, where they're trying to educate their angel investors about the opportunity in ag tech. And so there's absolutely a focus there. It's moving in the right direction, but we got a long ways to go because the ag tech ecosystem in general is undercapitalized. There's not enough capital in that ecosystem in order for us to really drive ahead what needs to happen, not only in Canada, but globally.
So for Remy, the main aspect to focus on in terms of a national strategy to develop AgTech is capital, capital, capital. I'd love to get your opinion on it, Karen. I see you nodding. Do you have any main pillars in terms of what would be in your national AgTech strategy?
I'm just saying hallelujah. I mean, I can I can hear what Remy's saying. It's exactly what I keep saying to everyone, is that, investors in Canada, we have a certain way of saying, okay, let's talk about government funding and talk about different ways that the government can help us along. And the government has done that, put its money where its mouth is. There's been a lot of funding put out in AgTech. I mean, obviously, I agree with Remy. We're still underfunded in this world, but AgTech is getting more funding from the government, from provincial. Alberta government has been very generous with my company, and I really, I'm never going to say anything bad about that, but we need more. We need to fund more companies. Companies that I speak to are having trouble in the seed and pre-seed. They're always asking me, how did you manage this? There used to be a wonderful group at AVAC that helped us along the way, and it's changed now. And so that type of thing needs to exist in Alberta. For the Canadian scope, we want to look at how we're bringing out the benefits from each province. In my opinion, I mean, each province has its benefits that it's bringing. In Alberta, we're very good at as I said, energy production. In Alberta, we have more cows than people. So, if 4.9 million, I'm just going to look down at my notes, 4.9 million cows and 4.4 million people. So when we think about that, what are we doing there? We're specialized in beef production, and how are we helping those beef producers meet the demands of the global market? What does that mean? They are, there's a lot of press about beef and how they're contributing to greenhouse gas emissions globally. How are we helping our producers move that along through funding, through tech adoption? How are they getting grants for tech adoption, de-risking tech adoption? How are the food companies helping them get tech adoption and de-risk that? And then, of course, how are we bringing capital into tech companies to rise to the challenge? So a big collaborative discussion and policy framework is welcomed from the AgTech perspective, from a company trying to grow in this market.
Excellent. And Stan, you might have a bit of a different perspective. So I'd like to turn to you. I don't know if it's from an academic standpoint or what your angle will be, but national strategy, what do you think are the key pillars there? What would we need to focus on?
Well, when I think about the companies that we work with in our faculty, they invest $40-50 million a year in very specific areas. And that makes me think about whether in that national strategy, we have to be clear about what gives us a comparative advantage. We are not a corn, soy, Midwest US kind of farming system. We have a diversity of crops that we have across certainly Western Canada. When I think about the soil zones that we have here, we are a temperate agriculture. These are the kinds of things that I think that not just a broad strategy about where AgTech can help, but how can we develop these kinds of technologies here just because we're a great laboratory for doing this work, but this will also scale to other parts of the world that have some of these similar challenges that we face here as well. So I think that's how we tie this together. I feel like I'm, dredging up an old report, the Barton report that many of our viewers will know about from 2017. That was an exciting vision to talk about Canada being the world supplier of safe, nutritious, sustainable food. I like the thoughtfulness, the intentionality of that. And I think that's where we need to take the ag tech sector and that future vision.
And speaking of that future vision, I want to turn to each and every one of you. If looking forward, and I know that you each have your specific areas of specialty and expertise, what excites you the most on the horizon for ag tech? It could be a specific technology, it could be a specific application. does anybody want to jump on this one first? What gets your blood pumping when you think of the next 3-5 years?
I'm happy to step in first. I already alluded to it in the opening. It's about the people. When I see the work that our graduate students are doing, what's happening? I mean, the new technologies are actually developing into new companies that are producing innovative new products that started on a bench here within our faculty. When I see all of the people that we're bringing into the agri-food sector from outside, because they see the excitement, they see that, you know, $75-80 billion export opportunity for Canada. I think we can attract great people, but really the action, I think, that you were asking about, Tim, it's about investing in those people. Let's expand MITAC so we can get more of our graduate students working right in the companies that are going to be able to drive us forward. Let's invest and bring people in to make it attractive for people to want to be involved in agriculture that right now have no idea. They're studying robotics or they're studying artificial intelligence or machine learning. We need to attract those people in. And certainly I have a column coming out in Grains West, and there are a number of other people that have called for an actual strategy for bringing people into agri-food at every level, at the tech level, at the doer level, all of the places that we need, because I think Remy mentioned it earlier, labor is going to be one of those issues. People are going to be one of those issues for us to realize our possibilities here in Canada and in Alberta.
Yeah, ICTC recently released a report on the tech labor needs in AgTech. Very interesting stuff in there. Remy and Karen, a similar question. When you look at the next 3-5 years or that type of window, what do you see on the horizon and what excites you most about it? Remy, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah. I think that we've got an immense opportunity in terms of value-added food products. Stan mentioned about, the Canadian brand, safe food coming from Canada. I think people globally trust Canadians. We're very trustworthy people. And so I think we can leverage that in terms of value-added food products, that are low carbon, meet certain, GHG standards. Along with that, I think we have a real opportunity when we see some of the technologies that are coming into the province. For instance, Telus is investing $14.5 billion in Alberta through to 2024 around 5G networks in the province. And to me, that's like, I had to actually have a double take around the billion or million of what we were talking about. And I did confirm it was billion, which I was like, holy smokes, what this means for things like sensors in the field, autonomous equipment and vehicles, huge opportunity for us. And so that to me is really exciting.
Karen, what's your take on it? What do you see?
Sure. I'll just chime in there with a couple of notes. We're hiring. I'm just going to put that out there. And we've had trouble getting, people. We're competing with the big companies, Google, Amazon, we're competing with these big companies for tech talent. And so it's a tough competition. And we really need to train up enough tech talent to resource all the ag tech companies that are being born and raised in Alberta and in Canada. So that's definitely a big push. But of course, I'm going to talk about the amazing opportunity we have in biomass to energy again, because that industry is just in the infancy, and Alberta can lead that. We have a lot of biomass available to us, and across the prairie provinces, working together to create energy from that. That industry is in the billions. So that's billions of dollars of opportunity to create something out of waste. It's a massive opportunity that we need to jump on and resource right away. We see companies doing that in Alberta successfully already that have really taken the risk themselves, been really bold. We see Sunterra Foods doing things with their feedlots, with their greenhouses. They're taking bold steps. And of course, Canadian-wide, we see, Maple Leaf Foods taking a huge step, the most sustainable protein company in the world. I mean, big vision, a big, bold vision that I am so supportive of. And, anything we can do to work with these companies and help them with this vision to take Canada into the future is, on our agenda, absolutely top of list. Really, we need to be bold in Canada. We're known for quality products. As Remy said, we have this really great reputation. We've got awesome governmental support with respect to tariff and trade agreements. And we need to be, my vision of Canada is the world leader in this. Not, we're pretty good at this, but we're leading the industry in food production.
Well, you just said, Karen, we need to be bold. And we've got some great questions from our audience that I want to get to in just a moment. First, I want to turn to each one of you again to give you 30 seconds. And please, 30 seconds for that final call to action. And again, like Karen said, let's be bold. Who has to do what now to make Alberta, to make Canada a global leader in AgTech? One person or one organization, what do they have to do now? What would you call upon and who? And let's start with you, Stan, if you don't mind.
Of course, this is the tough one. I think we just have to be very courageous to set a goal. If it's Alberta, let's say in the next 10 years, we need to increase our agri-food exports to $30 billion. Usually we're around $10 or $12 billion. When we start to do that, it means that all of the other partners are going to participate. We need to have government. We need to have producers through their commodity groups. Of course, we need all these great new companies that are hiring innovative people to drive this forward. But right now, it feels like we're just taking what's on the table. I think we have to set a target, make that a sustainable target, but let's make it a money target to show the rest of the world we're serious.
Sounds good. I like it. Remy, what's your call to action and for who?
Yeah, I mean, if you're picking one thing, it has to be at the top, and we work down from. I agree with Stan. Like, it's that unified vision, federally and provincially. I mean, there's certainly things that we can do individually. Like, I'm still blown away that in our school systems that computer programming isn't the third language that we learn. So I think there's some fundamental things. Software is eating the world. We have to accept that. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to the big picture as a starting point. And then really making it happen of all the different players coming in to capture this opportunity that we have.
Excellent. And Karen, if you had to pick on someone, who would you point to?
I'm going to pick on investors. I'm going to say, let's be bold. Investing in Canada, let's not be cautious with our investment dollars. Let's really invest and take some risks on early stage ag tech companies, but also in big, huge swings at investment into energy, renewable natural gas and energy plays. Let's take big swings, be really bold. I mean, those of us that are in ag tech and trying to grow a company, we're taking a big swing personally. We're putting everything we have into this and taking a huge personal risk. We all need to act like we're an ag tech startup and just take a big swing at this.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into the Q&A now, and I'm going to start with one that touches on what you just mentioned, Karen, which is risk. We have a question from Elaine Laflamme of Rainmaker Global Business Development, and she's asking all of you, so this will go around the table, what are your thoughts about who should absorb the risks for tech implementation? Will farmers be financially compensated and incentivized as partners in tech adoption? And I'll leave this one on the table for whoever wants to jump on the bomb first.
Go ahead,
Karen, you're up.
I'm going to say the last group that should be taking this risk is the farms, and it is the first group that's stepping up. So we see other countries really support their ag industry with tax rebates and credits, investment rebates and credits. And then private equity really digs in here. I'm just going to say in the US, private equity digs into these big risks and takes that takes that hit, takes that risk on with private dollars. So in the US, the government supports the farm risk and the private equity takes a lot of that money and financial and business risk. And to that, they bring companies, they grow them really and nurture them really well. I mean, maybe when people look at the US market, they wouldn't say they nurture them, but they really get them out of the gun fired right away. So that type of thing, what we see is the farms taking all the risk themselves and they've got enough risk. I mean, they've just got weather that they have to deal with. That's enough on their plates as far as I'm concerned. It really needs to be bolstered between private money and government money working together in collaboration to buoy this up. And when I say private money, I mean food companies. Like I said about Maple Leaf Foods or Sunterra, they're taking their risk as a food corporate to allow their farms to have less of a risk on their own land.
Remy, do you agree or do you disagree? What are your thoughts about who should absorb the risk for tech implementation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very broad question, right? And so I don't know it's hard to answer that specifically. I'm a big fan of skin in the game. It creates efficiencies in market when, what I don't want to have happening is things being implemented that don't make sense. Those aren't good for us either. So depending on what it is, I think it does make sense for everyone to have some skin in the game in some way. If there's benefit to the farmers are risk takers. So they are willing to make investments in things and they're willing to move ahead on things if they can see benefit to it. So I'm okay with them having some skin in the game. I don't think they should shoulder it all. So it's a balancing act, but for sure, government, industry, the other partners that are in the mix of it, I think everyone should have a stake in the table because it's important that we're not moving ahead with things that aren't logical because that does happen sometimes.
What are your thoughts, Stan?
Yeah, if I could, I would just say that, it always seems to revolve around the readiness to commercialize, sort of those TRL levels. In Alberta, I think that there have been some interesting things that have happened. We have the new results-driven agricultural research group, $37 million a year, thinking about sort of that portfolio of short, medium, long-term investments. So taking on some of that risk, money that has originally come from Alberta taxpayers. And I really have to give a shout out to the commodity groups. When I think about the kinds of investments that our commodity groups here in Alberta are making, in our case, they invest in our canola breeding, in our wheat breeding, sometimes very basic research, but they see the long-term payoff that is there. So I think obviously the closer to get to commercialization, the more risk that the people that are standing to benefit will take advantage of. But even our sponsor, Alberta Innovates, has been very active in supporting the genomics work here and other places across Alberta. So we have a system, but maybe again, it has to be just that little bit more thoughtful and intentional.
Now, Karen, in her response, you referenced the US and you said that they have a good model for this. When you travel, when you speak to other colleagues internationally, and this is for all of you, are there other models or systems that have been applied elsewhere that you think have had great impacts on other countries' AgTech ecosystems that could and should be imported and implemented here? Does anything come to mind in that respect?
Yeah, I'll just mention that there is, in Europe, we see more value created per acre. So how do they do that? I want to emulate how they're doing that, how they're creating that value. They have, anaerobic digesters in Europe. There's in the tens of thousands, and in Canada, there's in the low hundreds. So, what are they doing there that is allowing for that tech adoption? Some of it is a shared risk profile. Like Remy said, we want to have farmers have, a little bit of skin in the game so that they are working to create value on their, and giving us insights into how our tech creates value for them. So we want them in the business, but not taking all the risk. And so I think there's a very good shared support system between government, industry, and the farms to allow AgTech to flourish in some of those areas. And then we're also seeing I think the Green Recovery Program is what it's called in Europe. We're getting tons of inbound inquiries regarding how they can use that recovery program to revolutionize their livestock industry to create more value there. So that is what I would say. When I look around, that's a really successful way of bringing farms together with industry. The US model, of course, is private equity based maybe or venture capital based, so a little bit different, pushing AgTech companies along. But in Europe, I think there's a really good dollar per acre objective that they have really created some success.
I also do a bit of work with the European Union, and what I've noticed, people might want to look up something called EIT Food. It's a 400 million euro initiative of the European Union, but it actually dictates that multinationals that are based in Europe work with small and medium enterprise companies, work with specific ag tech companies to try to make sure that this ecosystem develops. So again, that very intentional approach that happens.
Well, we have a question from Onel in the audience, and the question is something similar to what you just touched upon, Sam. This collaboration between industry and the farms themselves and the ag tech innovators. And Onel asks, what needs to happen to enable farmers to be able to evaluate new ag tech solutions that can generate meaningful ROI without taking too much time? And I don't think we're asking about the financing side of things here. We're asking about the experimentation, the collaboration, and then the analysis of the results. How can we test Canadian ag techs in the farms as quickly and as productively as possible? Remy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think a great example is the Olds College Smart Farm, where they've really stepped up, and, Telus as a partner there has made a pretty significant investment in helping to fund those initiatives where you can take, leading edge technologies and actually apply them on the Olds College farm in a setting that allows you to evaluate the benefits, the challenges, those kinds of things. So I think that's a great example where you're collaborating between, academia, industry, and being able to draw some conclusions quite quickly. So we need to continue to do more of that. We need to expand those initiatives and put more horsepower behind them.
I totally agree. Yeah, I'm nodding away here. I was going to mention Olds, what they're doing there, but other universities are working in kind, so they're doing the same thing. Another thing I wanted to mention was just some accelerator programs that we have. Thrive Accelerator, which was something that we got engaged with early on, and we worked on that from Calgary to Silicon Valley, to their office there. They were doing demo field trials with some of the partners there. Thrive has since announced that they are, opening an office in Calgary. So this is, and collaborating with Olds to do this demonstration work. So taking some investment, working with universities, corporates, and seed investment to demonstrate products and value creation for farmers to de-risk some of the value propositions that are being put out there. So accelerators are an excellent strategy for that. And we just saw Calgary, I think, is home to Plug and Play, a new Plug and Play office. So another accelerator, tech accelerator coming on board here to do exactly this, de-risk new tech.
Yeah, a great announcement. Congratulations, Calgary. Another win under the belt. Well done. We have time for one more question, and maybe two. We'll see how long it takes for you guys to answer this one. And it touches on something that, Remy, you were quite excited about. It's a question from Sheikh, and Sheikh asks, one of the challenges farmers in Alberta face is connectivity and bandwidth. How are we addressing that? Now, Remy, you mentioned that there has been a big investment there, but we know that 5G connectivity bandwidth is the connective sinew that connects all these different ag tech pieces all over the farm. What more needs to be done on that front? How are we going to push that forward?
Yeah, so to start, I'm not the 5G expert. I just want to throw that disclaimer out to begin with. But yeah, I mean, I think it's ultimately about supporting, our Canadian telecoms in getting better coverage rurally, implementing 5G, so that, farmers' fields, they're in pretty remote areas at times, right? So that you have that connectivity. I mean, this is an implementation project, really, at the end of the day. And so, companies like Telus that have stepped up, I think, that is the right, step forward in terms of getting the ball rolling.
Stan, Karen, anything to add?
I don't know if I have anything to add. Remy, I see you as the expert. So, to say that obviously pre-pandemic, but I've always been excited by the fact that so many companies that never really had agri-food in their portfolio are interested, right? So one of the last meetings I attended in person was in Seattle. There was an invitation from Microsoft to look at some of the things that they're doing in the ag space. Airbus was there, Google was there, IBM Watson was there. As a kid that grew up on a farm about 50 kilometers south of where I'm sitting right now, to see that level of engagement is exciting. I know that they have very clear motivations to get involved here, but why shouldn't Alberta and Canada be that location where they make investments and we become the opportunities for where some of these new interesting technologies might deploy first?
Absolutely. I really am encouraged by what Telus is doing, because we've had some of our farms, engage with Starlink in the US, and it's a difficult thing to work with. It for a number of technical reasons. It doesn't allow us to really get our tech adapted easily. So this rural broadband or this rural connectivity issue is everywhere, and I see Telus as our big shining beacon in what they're doing there. I just saw Beth Ford was interviewed on Reid Hoffman's podcast this week about butter and bandwidth, and so we're really talking about how that all ties together. We can't increase ag tech if there's no connectivity. So it all ties together.
I think just to add to that, I mean, one of the things that from a government standpoint that the industry needs is really a use it or lose it philosophy or approach to this when it comes to the spectrum that companies have. If they're not using it, they should lose it so that somebody else can pick it up and start to expand things like 5G or into rural areas. I think that's one of the main challenges or roadblock that's in the industry right now. So there's a clear ask in terms of something that can be moved forward.
Excellent. Well, we're at the end of the hour, and I love ending on a strong call to action like that. So Stan, Karen, Remy, I want to say thank you to all of you for a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I really appreciate all the insights and calls to action that you put out. To the audience, if you enjoyed today's panel, please make sure to visit TheFutureEconomy.ca for more great conversations on Canada's future economy, just like this one. You can sign up for our newsletter and stay tuned over socials. And last but not least, I want to say thank you again to Alberta Innovates for sponsoring this event and the Alberta Beyond series that it's a part of. So again, go check out the fascinating interviews we have with Albertan thought leaders in AI, life sciences, energy, tech, and more. That concludes today's session. So I want to say thank you again to all the panelists and all the audience members for joining in. And I look forward to seeing you all again next time, hopefully in person. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.